When Street Fighter II was released in the arcades in 1991, it revolutionized the fighting game genre. Its dynamic gameplay, unique characters, and intricate combat mechanics set the standard for what fighting games could and should be. Given the game's success, it was inevitable that it would be ported to various platforms, including the Game Boy. Released in 1995, the Game Boy version of Street Fighter II attempted to capture the essence of the original on a handheld system. While it made some commendable strides in translating the arcade experience, it also fell short in several key areas, making it a mixed bag for fans and newcomers alike. One of the most notable achievements of Street Fighter II for the Game Boy is how much of the original game Capcom managed to squeeze into the limited hardware. The Game Boy, with its monochrome screen and limited processing power, was not an ideal platform for a game as complex as Street Fighter II. However, the developers did an impressive job of retaining the core elements that made the game famous. The character roster, although limited compared to the arcade version, includes series staples like Ryu, Ken, Chun-Li, and Blanka. Each character retains their iconic special moves, such as Ryu's Hadouken and Chun-Li's spinning bird kick, allowing for a familiar experience despite the hardware limitations. The controls, although simplified due to the Game Boy's 2-button layout, are surprisingly responsive. The developers cleverly mapped the various moves to accommodate the lack of buttons, making the game feel intuitive and accessible even on a handheld device. Graphically, Street Fighter II on the Game Boy is a triumph, considering the constraints. The sprites are well drawn, and the characters are easily recognizable, even in monochrome. The stages, though lacking the vibrant colors of the arcade version, are detailed enough to evoke the essence of their counterparts. The music and sound effects, while limited, do their best to replicate the iconic sounds of the original, providing a nostalgic audio backdrop to the portable experience. Despite these accomplishments, the Game Boy version of Street Fighter II is not without its drawbacks. The most glaring issue is the game's inherent limitation due to the hardware. The Game Boy's small screen and lack of color significantly diminish the visual experience. The absence of color makes it difficult at times to distinguish between characters and the background, especially during intense moments of combat. Additionally, the small screen size leads to a cramped feel, which can make it challenging to execute precise moves, particularly for players accustomed to the arcade or console versions. Another significant drawback is the reduced roster of characters and moves. While some iconic fighters made it into the game, others were left out due to memory constraints. This reduction in choice limits the replay value and variety that the original game was known for. Furthermore, the absence of certain moves and the simplification of others can make the gameplay feel stripped down and less strategic, detracting from the depth that Street Fighter II was celebrated for. The controls, though functional, also suffer from the limitations of the Game Boy's 2-button setup. While the developers did their best to accommodate this, the lack of distinct buttons for punches and kicks can make the combat feel less nuanced. The necessity of using combinations of button presses to execute certain moves can lead to frustration, especially in fast-paced battles where split-second decisions are crucial. Lastly, the game's difficulty level is somewhat inconsistent. The AI opponents can range from being too easy to unpredictably difficult, with no clear progression and challenge. This uneven difficulty curve can detract from the overall enjoyment, as it either leads to boredom or frustration depending on where you fall on the spectrum of skill. Street Fighter II for the Game Boy is a testament to what developers can achieve within the constraints of limited hardware. It successfully captures many of the elements that made the original a classic, offering a portable version of one of the most beloved fighting games of all time. However, it is also a reminder of the limitations of the Game Boy, as the game falls short in areas such as visual clarity, character roster, and control precision. For fans of the series and retro gaming enthusiasts, Street Fighter II on the Game Boy offers a nostalgic trip down memory lane. It's a remarkable achievement in some respects, but one that is ultimately hampered by the technical limitations of the platform. For those looking for a true Street Fighter II experience, this version might feel like a shadow of its arcade counterpart, but it remains an interesting piece of gaming history and a commendable effort to bring a complex game to a simpler time. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to like and subscribe. As always, thank you for watching.